recommend the viewers to watch till the end and share this video to everyone as it contains the most valuable information that you have ever seen. We also request the viewers to voice out on this long-going conflict to seek the truth. Israel-Palestine conflict. Let's break down the conspiracy behind this Hamas attack. The thumb rules to declassify the conspiracy behind this attack is to crack down the information with facts and logics. Number 1. Do not rely on mainstream media news channel because most of the mainstream media channels are owned by the Jews. Number 2. The mainstream media will try to trigger on your emotional response while watching the scenes, so do not get emotional. Always think rationally. Number 3. Some of you may ask, should I not watch mainstream news channel? The answer lies on what we seek from the channel. Let us analyze these news events one by one. The more we analyze, we will be able to see the larger picture. You will be able to see how the mainstream media tries to control your mind by dumping your mind with false information. The more you seek for rational information, the more you could see the real conspiracy behind this attack. The news. Hamas attacked Israel. Rockets are fired towards Israel from the Gaza Strip. Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, consisting of a barrage of 3,000 rockets and an unprecedented infiltration into Israel's southern towns. The conflict escalated with gunfights and hostage situations as the Hamas assault extended to around 22 locations up to 15 miles from the Gaza border. The Israeli military said that it had also captured dozens of militants during its Operation Iron Swords against Hamas militants. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu earlier vowed to reduce the group's Gaza hideouts to rubble. As the situation was getting worse, the mainstream media news channels now suddenly aired that the countries like Canada, America, London, and India are likely to support Israel, and on the other hand, Russia and China are likely to support Palestine. This kind of propagation would eventually make everyone to think that the world is going to start a war. This false diversion is called mainstream media war propaganda. How did the Hamas attack Israel? How could a small militant group like Hamas fight against a strong defensive force like Israel? Did the Israel intelligence miss somewhere? Even now, we did not receive any proper information from Israel Defense Ministry that how they missed to intercept the critical operation done by Hamas. How could the Mossad really miss this? Being the world's top-notch ruthless espionage service, which is the best in search and destroy operations, how did Mossad really miss it? Did a country having enough equipped with modern war machines and guns really withdraw from Gaza? Is it true that Mossad's intel was breached, which led to the capturing of the Israeli troops? It is highly dramatic to see the video showing Hamas fighters in parachutes landing the fighting zone carrying guns. Did it really happen? It is well known that Israel had been mounting unmanned weapon systems which could automatically shoot and destroy anyone who mobilized near its perimeter. And so far, not even a single drone could fly over. All these queries gives us a room for more doubts for investigation. Let us first start with Hamas. Hamas is a militant group which fights for the rights of the Palestinians, and most of the people who support the Palestinian freedom movement support Hamas. It is always good to have a militant group to fight for the rights of their people. Is Hamas really that much brilliant as to engage in such spontaneous attack against Israel in such brief time? Most of us still wonder how they did it. How were they able to make such attack after all these years? While most of the world would support Hamas for such brilliant attack, we would like to have a check on Hamas and their ideology behind this surprise attack. With the ongoing conflict in Gaza Strip, Operation Al-Aqsa Flood. Now let us see the ideology charter of Hamas. The ideology of Hamas. In the year 1988, the Hamas militant group was formed based on the ideology of fighting against the Jewish suppression. It is always good to fight against the tyranny, and to fight against the Jewish suppression is the key for the real freedom of the world. In their charter, it is strongly mentioned that the Jews are also presented as worthy of only humiliation and lives of misery, and especially talks about the Jewish control over the media, the film industry, and the education in Articles 17 and 22. This is actually true. It also exposes the truth about the Jews who had been responsible for all international and local wars, including the French Revolution. The key lines read that no war takes place anywhere without the Jews being behind it. The Charter also mentions the below lines: "Our battle against Jews is great and faithful, and all honest means are necessary for it. The time will not come until the Muslims fight the Jews and kill them." The above lines mentioned in their charter seems to be true, because the Jews are the real problem to the existence of peace throughout the world. One thing is absolute, and that is, if the Jews were not there, the world would have been in peace and harmony forever. The Jewish ideology. Though most of us will not agree to the point of what we just said, we want to ask a quick question to the people who defend the Jews. The Jews claim themselves as the chosen ones by God and see the rest of the people across the globe as their slaves or goats. No human being would dare to think about this diabolical ideology of the Jews, calling their fellow human beings as goats and treating them as slaves.
עכשיו, הגויים השם, כן? אלוקים עשה אותם בשביל שיעשו פה...
בשביל לשרת את היהודים. כל הגויים שאתה רואה שיש בעולם, המיליארדים האלה, הם הכל רק בשביל שהיהודים יהיה להם איזה תועלת.
עכשיו,
אנחנו לא רואים את זה, אנחנו לא יודעים בדיוק.
The Jewish community, who has been living under this ideology for years together, is nothing but carrying mental illness. The Indian Jews, Brahmin. The same Jewish methodology is being carried by the Indian Brahmins too. The Indian Brahmins and the Jews share the same psychological trait along with their genetic code, which has identified themselves with the Jewish descendants. These Jewish groups do not have any culture or dignity to live a peaceful life. Their poisonous ideas to divide and destroy others lead to the destruction of the global peace. Only a very few Jewish people like Jesus, John F. Kennedy had been out of the blue, but still paid their price. With these informations, it is crystal clear that Hamas was rightly fighting against the Jews. However, in 2017, the ideology of Hamas was changed for the first time for political reasons. Shockingly, the base ideology of the Hamas was altered, and the changes were made to the article titled "Image of the Enemy." This article had major changes, where the article lines read that the Jews are not the prime enemies of Hamas, but the Zionists are the enemies of Hamas. The Zionists are the people who support the Jews, and to our utter shock, the vital articles 17 and 22 had been removed from the charter. These critical changes made to the article have given us a room for more speculation. Speculations. Speculation number 1. The Hamas supporting the Palestinians had been under control until 2017. After 2017, they could have gone dark. Speculation number 2. The Hamas could be a controlled opposition, just like ISIS, which would not target the Jews. Unlike ISIS, Hamas is a local militant group fighting against warmongering Israel. Hence, it is easy to wipe out Hamas at any time, and it is well known that any freedom movement that changes its fundamental ideology would deviate itself from its goal and lead to the destruction. Having said that, it had been observed that there was no safety measure planned by Hamas to evacuate people before launching rockets against IDF. There had been no strategic attack from Hamas after Israel had fired artillery on Gaza. Hence, we conclude that the attack from Hamas against IDF could also be a part of the Jewish plan. to invoke the World War. The Jews already had failed in triggering the Russian-Ukraine proxy war. Their next plan was to wage a war against Palestinians by all means, and the Jews had symbolically broadcasted this war message with the help of a Jewish boy named Abigya Anand. This boy had been previously utilized for broadcasting the Corona symbolic message. The Jews have been utilizing the religion to cover up their baseless statements to wage wars.
Conjunction occurs on the 14th of October, which is quite close, and that is also a very significant date, by the way. So this heralds stressful days for geopolitics globally. That is something that is a direct consequence of this particular combination.
Based on all these events, it is evident that the Mossad was carefully passing commands to Hamas to attack Israel Defense Force, which was easy to cook up a story of World War III. Conclusion: if the Jews wage a world war, India has to stand with Israel. China will stand with Palestine, which will make India to face against China. Eventually, this will put the Indian Tamils and Sri Lankan Tamils to danger. China's nearest target is Tamil Nadu's Kudankulam nuclear reactor. If India is set to launch an attack against China, this would again target the Sri Lankan Tamils as well. Either way, the Jewish plan to avenge Tamils for their loss in Mahabharat war would be a repeated occult ritual. Truth to be told, if there be a war waged, and if that war be going to destroy the Tamil lands of India and Sri Lanka, the sole responsibility for the destruction of the Tamil lands would be in the hands of Indian Brahmins, the Telugu Vadagars, the RSS and the Baniyas. And we condemn the Jewish community in the name of Tamil gods, as we will shout aloud that if you dare to touch the life of Tamils, sooner the Jews will be drastically perished. This is Murugan's Satya Yuga, and your plans will be fully exposed by all Tamil gods.